I would like to call the June 10th, 2020 meeting of the Urbana Human Relations Commission to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Bradford. Stacy Burnett.
Present.
Lolita Dumas. Daniel Larson. Lisa Mosley.
Here.
Peter Resnick.
Here.
Francis Rigberg.
Here. I believe we have a quorum. Thank you. Yay. Now I'd like to have a motion for approval of this evening's agenda.
I'd like to make one just quick little addition, and it's just for discussion, not anything we need to decide on, but in the new business, just to add on something about what we're planning to do in the near future with the current events that are going on. I think it's something that we should at least put on the agenda and think about how to deal with it in the future.
Can we put that on the agenda at this point to add a? Okay. How would you like that to be? Come on current affairs or current?
Or plans for, plans for dealing with current
community,
affairs, and or
community action, or
plans for community action. Yeah, any of those is fine.
Okay.
Is this specific to COVID?
No, sorry.
All
The
of the above.
the racial justice issues that are going on.
I just want to be really clear, and
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I do have an idea for that, so that's a great idea. We'll talk
Okay,
about
future
that's
plans
great.
for racial justice issues.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And we have added that to the new business, 6C, plans for community action. All right, now we have two sets of minutes to approve. One for March 11th, which was our last meeting with a quorum, and one for May 13th. Do we have motions for approval or, yes, motions for approval on the minutes?
I motion that we approve both sets of minutes. I'm sorry I didn't write down the dates. If you
That's
need-
okay. Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have any discussion of any changes we'd like to see or any comment? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion, the minutes are approved. Hi, Daniel. Daniel has joined us, yay. Okay, moving on. We have time now for public participation. You will each, anyone who wants to participate, make a input to the commission. You have 3 minutes in which to do that.
And we do have some,
Okay,
I was just gonna note, we do have someone, and if anyone on the call is not aware how to raise your hand, they can go down to the bottom of the screen and click the raise hand logo
thank
there.
you.
First up will be Christopher.
Yes. Go ahead, Christopher.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Hansen. I live in Urbana. We have a serious problem with corrupt city staff in Urbana. I tried to bring this up during public input at your last regular meeting, but it seems that everyone on the HRC just kind of preferred to ignore me. As we already know from complaints issued by myself, as well as several other residents, Vasilia Clark almost never responds to residents who are seeking help in filing police complaints and human rights complaints. This has been demonstrated over and over and over, and this is specifically the job of the Human Relations Officer. Last week during a city council meeting, one of the founding members of the CPRB, the Civilian Police Review Board, Scott Dossett, blamed Vasilia Clark for problems with the CPRB complaint process. 2 weeks ago, Councilmember Bill Brown asked about the CPRB training standards, which is a duty specifically assigned to the Human Relations Officer in the CPRB ordinance in section 19-23. Vasilia Clark has never generated those training and orientation documents in the 13 years since the existence of the CPRB. I have multiple letters from Urbana Police Chief Serafin blaming Vasilia Clark for not following the CPRB ordinance. I now have multiple letters from Urbana City Administrator Carol Mitten blaming Vasilia Clark for not following the CPRB ordinance. One of those letters is in regards to Clark selectively denying complaints that are not notarized. And in that letter, Carol Mitten writes, quote, "You are correct that the City Code, Chapter 19, Article 3, Division 3, Section 1928C does not explicitly require a notarized signature. Even after having submitted that letter, Vasilia Clark continues to play the notary requirement game." Last week, Vasilia Clark spoke during a city council meeting and told the council that within the CPRB ordinance is an explicit requirement for having complaints notarized. This is an example of Clark directly lying about the ordinance, and there's no way that this was a simple error on her part. First of all, because she's been involved with the CPRB for those 13 years, and also the issue of the notary requirement had already been under discussion for 2 months. And the very meeting where she made this claim was a meeting to discuss the CPRB ordinance. The ordinance is only 8 pages long, so there's no reason for anyone to be confused about its contents. This was simply a direct lie. Last week, the Human Relations Commission decided that human rights laws don't apply to city employees, so now there's a clear understanding that Urbana city staff can discriminate against residents who seek out city services. And there is a clear understanding that the city services do not need to be equally accessible to all residents. We also saw City Attorney James Simon reveal during that hearing and demonstrate the very real vitriol that city staff have for residents that attempt to engage their government. We watched Mr. Simon violate the terms of the hearing and violate the privacy clauses within the HRC and CPRB ordinances, and we watched Mr. Simon retaliate against me for having filed police complaints. Retaliation is specifically forbidden in the ordinance, and we just watched the Urbana city attorney do it. So I'm wondering.
5 more seconds, sir.
No, there's 5 minutes of input. I'm wondering.
Oh, there's 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
There's 3 minutes?
Yes.
Since when?
Since
Since-
last month.
COVID. Yeah.
No,
You
we've got
already-
5 minutes. The rule has always been 5 minutes or 3 if there's more than 20 participants.
Oh,
It's written in your bylaws.
I was misinformed. Okay.
Okay, so my question for your board, your commission rather, is where can we ever find any kind of accountability in the Urbana city government? I do not see it anywhere. All I see through every tier of city staff are methods and actions and interests in serving themselves and not holding any kind of responsibility. And I think your board, your commission needs to start talking about this and talking about it clearly so the public can see it, so that we can have some kind of confidence that there is a path going forward. I do not see this as being a sustainable path, and I do not see that these boards that claim to be civilian review boards have any real functional purpose right now. I'll leave it at there, but I'll also note that on your agenda today, you're going to be discussing the informal hearing in which I participated as complainant, and I would be happy to, I guess, answer any questions from my perspective as complainant. As I understand it, that type of hearing may have never happened in the history of your board, so it's a bit of a novelty. So I'll stay on the call. If anyone wants to talk to me, I'd be happy to talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hanson, I just would like to say we are not ignoring you because we're not ignoring you if we do not address your input. The purpose of public participation is not to engage in a discussion with the HRC commissioners, but to provide them with input. So that's what you're doing. We're not ignoring you. We're listening, but that's all we're doing.
Yeah, I guess I'll just close then by saying the public is begging for engagement in a discussion. We're begging for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else wish to address the commission? I guess not. I don't see anybody.
And by the way,
Yes.
just now that public participation is over, a couple of the issues that Mr. Hansen mentioned, I will be talking about in the summary of the hearing we had. So
Okay, good.
it probably would be
Around.
good to be stuck around to hear what we talked about.
Okay, very good. Now we're moving on to unfinished business, in which I'd like us to consider the recommendations that I circulated among you for some ideas for a media campaign in the areas of housing and employment discrimination. And the three things I'd like us to resolve, to vote on if we can reach agreement, is the media, that is billboards, buses, UPTV, which are all of those, the content, and the budget for this campaign. And all that information should be on this handout that you got. I hope you all had a chance to look at it. I'll begin with just to be a quick review. Billboards, we don't have a lot of control over the billboard situation, being a not-for-profit organization, because we don't have choice over location. They approve 5 groups per year that they are willing to provide with space, billboard space at no cost. And we don't even know if we'd be one of those, but if we were, we wouldn't have a choice of where they would put it up. We would have to pay only for the vinyl, the sign itself, and the cost of putting it up, but not for the space. And I recommend that we might as well put in for one such billboard, $350, and see if it goes up, and assess its impact by saying if people bring their complaints, bring their concerns, if that helped inform them of this possibility. And so I've listed there, imagine an end to housing discrimination in Urbana. And then it would give our information. Does anybody have any questions about the billboard possibility option?
Fran,
Yes,
I'm a little concerned that we don't know where it would be located.
that's
In
right.
my mind, it needs to be in Urbana.
Well, it has to, yes, it will be in Urbana. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just.
course. It's just that it won't be
Okay,
necessarily, we did this once before, years ago, I think you remember,
I
and
do.
it was way out, kind of the edge of town. But I've seen them go up in good places too. So it's available. It's not a very expensive option. And they do the artwork and they make the vinyl and everything for us. The other option, which I think is more interesting, is buses. And here we are just treated like anybody else, except that we may get some sort of special allowance or bonus. Like when I did this once before, they threw in the on-bus signs, which would be something like $775 to print up and place in the buses. And that he just gave us those. So there'll be some kind of accommodation, but these are the full retail prices. And there are things like you can wrap a bus and so on. I don't think we need that kind of publicity, but I think a nice queen size passenger side panel is something people see when they're lined up to get on the bus or they're getting on the bus. That's a good location. You're paying for size and location on the bus, just to make that clear. So a queen size is sort of a medium size one on the passenger side of the bus. And these are in 3-month increments. You have it up, you pay a price per month, and then you minimum 3 months and 6 months and so on. It gets a little less expensive if you go longer.
And how much is that?
Okay, for a queen size passenger side panel on one route, wait a second. Queen
That
size
was
passenger side
$1,250.
panel. I'm sorry. It's about $1,240 for 3 months, and that's when they make the artwork and you're paying for it, and then they put it up, and that's for 3 months. So we're paying per month for 3 months. And then we have a rear panel, which also is pretty visible in traffic. People see those. Is $900 for a 3-month sort of a trial run. See if we get any responses. And then the inside cards, which are less expensive, and they are a packet of 10 for $775. This is all, and I think, yeah, that's for 3 months. My suggested contents on that were to say, denied housing because of your race. This denial may be unlawful, and if so, we can help. And then our information. Denied a job because of a previous conviction. These are just kind of serving suggestions. The denial may be unlawful, and if so, we can help. Our contact information. And then denied housing because of a previous conviction. But we can mix and match those messages. This is just a recommendation so we could get something going.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Fran, did you say that this was $900 for all 3 months combined, or $900?
It's for all 3 months. All 3 months of a rear panel.
Okay.
And then we have the artwork. We can leave it up longer. It can amortize the production. And the nice thing is that we can, if this artwork is effective, then we can use that. It's very, very easy to make PowerPoint slides for UPTV. And we can make it, there's no cost for that. And I'd be very happy to do that. The idea of this kind of a campaign is that it's cumulative. You don't just put up one sign, but you put up all these different ones that look at different aspects of what we do. And we have, I'm just emphasizing here, housing and employment and race and previous conviction, because I know those are certainly problem areas. Does anybody have is there any discussion on this?
Just two quick questions.
Yes.
So, not being a marketing person, the content is entirely up to folks who know better about this stuff than I do. I like the idea as presented, but it looks fine. What is our budget like for this? Do we have upper limits or?
I don't know. I would say if you wanted to do everything for 3 months, as outlined here, that would be sort of the top end for sort of an initial campaign. It would be roughly, probably less than this, but it'd be roughly $3,500.
Right.
Or even maybe, depending on what they kick in for us, how nice they want to be, it might be about $3,000.
But is that within range of what the city is willing to give us to spend on that?
I do not know.
Is that a question for Vasilia then?
I think it is.
Yes, it is. And I think probably 3,000 is on the high end.
Okay.
I would probably feel more confident if we came in somewhere about 1,500 to 2,000.
Okay.
Which then informs my second question reasonably well, with absolutely, high confidence in my anecdotal personal experience, which I'm sure counts for a lot.
Where do you like to see your sign?
So the ones I remember tend to be on the back of the bus when I'm driving, because I pull up to the stop sign or whatever, and there it is.
There it is.
And when I'm riding the bus, the cards inside, I think, are quite effective. I actually remember other people's ads from those from time to time. So
Okay.
I think those two are, and the ones inside, because you get 10 different cards, I think those are good
Right.
bang for the buck.
And we want bus routes in Urbana. And the ones that I think are best are probably the red line and the green line. But we can take a close. Those are the ones that go to the areas where we probably want to reach out more. So if we please Pete here, and we have the rear sign and the inside signs, that is about 1,600 to 2,000. I mean, it'll be 1,675. And they may give us a little break on that. That's pretty affordable. And we could also put in, if you have a $2,000 budget,
Are you asking, Fran?
I'm thinking,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I would say if we had a $2,025 budget, we could have a billboard, a rear sign, and inside the bus signs for 3 months.
Okay.
So that might be a nice way to serve it up. I think we will get a little break from the bus people, so it might be more like 2,000 or maybe a little less. We'll see what they offer us. Anybody else like to make a comment or have a question?
I just had a question about the routes being chosen for the red line or green line. Is the gray line not an option because it travels through Champaign and Urbana, or?
Oh, it's fine. It doesn't matter. They don't care.
Okay.
We should put it where we want to reach people. And if you'd like to suggest that, I'm happy to.
I would suggest the gray line as well because that's
Okay.
a prominent portion of Urbana that these type of situations happen.
Okay.
Large group of
That
people.
goes up through North Lincoln Avenue through Urbana. And
Oh, okay. Actually, the rear bus sign is just going to be one. So we might want to put that on the gray line and then put the signs inside on a bunch of other ones. Maybe, I mean, we have at least 5 lines that would each one get 2 signs. So, that would be pretty good coverage. So that's shaping up. Dan, yes?
I hate to ask a question that might slow things down.
That's okay. Oh, I
But
can't hear you. Sorry.
Can folks hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
So I was just saying, and I'd be happy to research this, but we say research, then that means we add on months, and I don't mean to do that. But I just would be curious to know, have studies been done as what's the most effective type of public advertising for this type of issue? Is it volume of eyeballs? So maybe that means bus. Is it visibility? Because it was weird with our billboard, it was on Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
So I only have anecdotal evidence, but I actually had a lot of friends kind of, give me a little razzing. Hey, I saw your picture.
Okay.
But obviously the majority of people who probably saw that were passing through on the interstate. So they weren't really residents. So does that, so Fran, I love the notion that we're also going to sort of follow up on understanding the effectiveness of the campaign. I guess I'm just wondering, before we decide, I personally would love to know a little bit more about what folks in marketing say is the most effective. That's all. And if anyone knows that answer, I defer to you, but that's just a question that's come to mind.
Well, I think that, let me see. One thing we could do is if we wanted to pay more, we could have our choice of locations, and maybe that's worth it. I don't know what that cost would be, but having something like that at 5 Points or something like that might
A little closer to the city, right? Sorry, Fran.
be worth it. I think when you have a theme like this where they look kind of alike, but they touch different notes, sort of, and there's a cumulative effect, is known to be, because then there's a recognition factor. Oh, that's one of those HRC signs. They can help with this. I wonder if they can help with that.
Sure.
So you don't want like full of text. You just want to grab people's attention and get them thinking. And I think that, I don't know about that, but we had good luck with it at the Rape Crisis Services. This is very much modeled on that. And people they definitely saw the billboards.
Yeah,
Because Yeah.
I can remember it as well. So it was definitely
Yeah.
effective with me.
Mhm. And some of this we'll just have to see how it goes. I think if we pick the areas of discrimination and the bases of discrimination, and their things that people have on their mind right now, it'll be most effective. And I know that Danielle said that the previous conviction was a thing where it was really going on. And we know that race is a thing that's really going on. So I think those, and again, housing and employment, I think we're pretty focused. So I think it's worth a try. Does anyone else have any marketing chops here? I don't really. So,
Well, Fran,
yes.
one of the ways you can approach this is to get the commission's approval
Mhm.
for the dollar amount you want to spend,
Mhm.
and whether or not, the billboard or the signs on the bus, and get approvals for those things, and then you can iron out the details and follow up with the commission regarding those things.
Right. So in terms of media, would anyone like to make a motion on where we want to do our advertising?
So you said that if we did the billboards and the rear and inside of the buses, that would
Mhm.
sort of max out around 2,250 or something like that.
Yeah, 2025.
So why don't I just make a motion
Okay.
that we approve for this advertising up to $2,200, and I assume that way Vasilia can turn the crank and see if the city is going to be okay with that number,
Mhm.
and then let you go from there and make a particular recommendation if you can dig up someone with marketing expertise who might
Well,
be
actually-
who do this and not that, or that.
Right. Well, actually, the people who handle these things, who do the artwork and all, they're marketing people. And in fact,
Sure.
the bus company doesn't do it themselves. They have this company, Mesmerize. So we're going to mesmerize her. And the contact there, just as the contact at Billboard, she's in Peoria. She's their PR person. So these people may have suggestions.
So
They
then
do
I'll
artwork
just
at town.
have the motion for the HRC to approve up to $2,200 in expenditures on bus and/or billboard advertising to be determined.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion. Would anyone like to second it?
I second.
Okay. Any more discussion at this point or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okey doke. We have a plan and we can see if we can get it funded. Vasilia, that's your job. Okay, thank you. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. That feels good. Moving on to new business, we have, Vasilia, the approval of the workforce statistics.
Okay, you have, I believe, 9 companies that have submitted their applications for recertifications for their EEO. And what I think I'll do is I'll go through who I am recommending for 2-year, 1 year, and then there's one we need to talk about.
Okay.
For the 2, staff is recommending 2-year certifications for ERES International, ABC Sanitary, Corame Insurance, Conan Body Works or Body and Equipment, and NPOP. Those are the 5 that I would recommend consideration for 2 years. Okay, for 1 year certifications, I'm recommending Robinson Engineering for 1 year and Springfield Electric and MSA Professional Services.
Okay,
And the one company that I think should be discussed by the commission is Deuce Construction.
yes. Okay, first let's have a motion,
Well,
or do we want to discuss first?
probably discussion.
Okay, discussion first. Anybody have any comments they want to make or opinions about these recommendations? Yes, Lisa.
So I concur with Cecilia's. When I look at the one she's recommending for 1 year, these are large companies that have very few minorities and women. And when I look at the 2 years, many of these are small companies. Many of them are even under our threshold of the 15 to 20. Correct me, Vasilia, with the amount of
Yeah, I think that's correct.
We can't hold them accountable, or we understand they're a very small company and they're not necessarily have the numbers to diversify. So I would concur, and then Deuce is one that we'll discuss.
So, Fran,
Yeah, sure. Peter.
on all of these are renewals. How long has Robinson been in the pipeline here? I know Springfield Electric has been in for a long time. I recognize that name from multiple years.
Yes.
I don't have that information before me. Peter, they're from South Holland, Illinois. And
Okay.
I'm assuming that this is a company that Public Works uses on occasion.
Gotcha.
And they're just simply trying to make sure that their certification and paperwork is current in case that the city had some work for them to do.
Okay, so no particular contract on the Robinson that we know of.
Correct.
So, I mean, both Robinson and Springfield, obviously the numbers are pretty horrible. But given the number of times we've seen Springfield over the years, have we gotten some information from them? And we may have gotten it before, I'm just not remembering, about some efforts they're making, some, real efforts at trying to diversify, at trying to make sure that they're getting to the right places. Do we
Well,
have
they
that
send-
information from them yet?
They send us their total workforce, but the employees that are assigned to Urbana, there are 19 employees, of which one is an African American.
Okay, so part of your determination was also the local workforce.
Yes, yes.
Got it. Because one thing that I wonder with both of those is, when is the time that we say, okay, we want to see some actual evidence that you are taking reasonable steps to improve things. There are going to be some times where numbers just don't go up, and no matter what you try, due to demographics, due to whatever, but we like to see you make the effort and show that you've made the effort. I guess with both of these, is there a reason to pause before we ask for it? Pause their approval before we ask for that information, or we say we're giving you another year, but now we do want to see that due diligence?
I think it is totally reasonable to ask them for a recruitment and hiring plan, and within this year's time, we will expect additional information that will help us better assess them the next time they come up.
Okay, with that, why don't, for the ones that we've got staff recommendations, I'll make a motion to approve with staff recommendations. Do you need me to list them, or Cecilia, you got them all?
I have them.
Okay, so a motion to approve with staff recommendations, with the understanding that for the 1 year staff recommendations, we are asking for additional recruitment policies and procedures to help us understand that they are, there's a phrase here that I'm forgetting, that they are doing proper due diligence, or there's
Good
another.
faith efforts.
Good faith efforts. Thank you, Stacy. I'll blame it entirely on drugs tonight. So yes, that they are to make a showing of good faith efforts within that year.
All right, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All opposed? The motion carries and the staff recommendations are approved, except for the one that we want to discuss. Deuce. Steve, would you like to comment on that?
Well, they are always a challenge when you look at their numbers and try to factor in the fact that they have a lot of skilled labor. But what I noticed in this year's application is that they had, let's see here, they hired 8 unskilled workers and none of them were minorities.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So maybe it is time for, now are they a union shop? So are they getting only through union, or are they hiring directly?
I'm not sure. I know they have skilled and unskilled positions.
The unskilled wouldn't be union jobs.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So then, I would make a motion at this point, without approving them for any period of time, that we request from them some showing of good faith efforts with regard to their hiring practices, and wait until we receive those and review that before we make any decision on approving them.
Anybody like to second that?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. That will be our approach to Deuce Construction. Then that is carried. Is that it for the workforce statistics? I believe it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now we come to 2 important new business items. One is to take a look back at our informal hearing that we had recently for the complainant who appealed his decision of no jurisdiction. Who would like to start the discussion of this?
I guess I can give you an overview of what happened, what I thought went well, where I thought we learned a few things, and then have people pummel me with questions if you like.
Absolutely.
So I thought overall the hearing went as well, if not better, than I expected. I think for those who need the background, when someone brings a complaint, a discrimination complaint, if there is a finding of no jurisdiction, that is, the Human Rights Ordinance doesn't cover this case, and maybe you have to go somewhere else or otherwise, or if there is a finding of no probable cause, that is, it is covered by the ordinance, but there's not enough evidence that there was actual discrimination that took place. If either one of those is found by the officer, the person who's doing that investigation, the complainant then has the opportunity to say, I disagree with that finding, and make an appeal to the commission. The commission then assigns one commissioner, in this case it was me, and then 2 people who know enough about the Human Rights Ordinance, in this case, former commissioners Rizwan Yudin and Marion Knight were willing to step up and be our co-panelists for this. And then that panel will hear from both the officer and from the complainant, and make a decision whether to uphold the officer's original determination or to overturn that determination and send it on for further processing. So in this case, the complainant came because of a case of no jurisdiction. Because of the nature of the case, Vasilia was conflicted out of actually doing the investigation. So the mayor, the ordinance allows for the designee to be the officer for the case. And so the mayor assigned James Simon, the city attorney, to do the investigation. He found no probable cause. He found no jurisdiction, and then that came to the appeal. And as Mr. Hansen, who spoke during public input, said, he was the person who brought the complaint and then the appeal. So we had the hearing. So the tricky parts for me were even though this is not a commission meeting, I'm the only commissioner, so it's not officially a commission meeting, but it's close enough to an official body that we decided to follow Open Meetings Act rules, which meant we had to have an agenda, we had a minute taker, we did all of the appropriate things for open meetings. We did our deliberations, the three of us, in open session because we didn't, especially for a jurisdiction issue where it doesn't go into the details of the case, we felt like there was no particular private information that was going to be difficult to discuss in open session. The Open Meetings Act allows for deliberations in closed session, but we didn't have to use that. But going through the open meetings stuff was tedious to get it all set up correctly. I thought one of the things that went very well, I don't think I am saying anything wild by saying that, as you heard, Mr. Hansen is not a person who is shy about expressing his views on when things go wrong. But I felt like I had a lot of direct contact with him during the whole process, asking about scheduling, about the nature of what was going to go on, asking how much time was going to be needed for his presentation, how much time was going to be needed for Mr. Simons, making sure to keep those channels of communication open. And I think it went very well. I think everybody came in with very good expectations, and I think everybody came out feeling like at the very least they were heard and they weren't dismissed out of hand. So I thought that went particularly well. And I think especially when you have a difficult case where someone is obviously going to be come in not terribly happy, they've had their case dismissed, that can be tense. But I think keeping those lines of communication, no matter how tense, makes it all the better. And so I think from that perspective, it went very well. I think having previous commissioners hear the case is a good pattern for the extra two citizens. There was never a question in my mind that the folks sitting to the left and right of me didn't understand the ordinance issues. I thought we did a good job of setting up an amount of time for everybody to make their presentation and then for the panelists to ask questions. We did public input because it was an open meeting. Some of you who participated noticed that we had the Zoom bombing issue and some just disturbing statements and pictures, but nice to see that we are now using the upgraded version of Zoom with the panelists versus attendees. So that's no longer an issue. And hopefully we won't have to do that sort of thing in the future, or, we won't run into that kind of problem. What else can I tell you? I think the two things that the entire process brought out that I think we need to work on in the future, first of all, there is absolutely no question among anybody, and we put a little note in our decision about this, none of the three of us thought there was any question that the ordinance has some places which are just awful in terms of their clarity. If you used Mr. Simon's interpretation of some of the definitions, there were outright contradictions, even using some of the definitions given by Mr. Hansen. There was a lot of ambiguity and a lot of place for all sorts of things to be just a mess. So I think as a commission, we need to spend some time going through those areas and come up with some recommendations for the mayor and city council to clean up the spaces that are causing some of this strife. The city has the option to solve these problems however they want, but I think we can come up with some decent recommendations and figure that out. The other thing that came out of this process, and Vasilia and I talked a little bit about this after the case, is that one of the things that I think caused part of the problem that ended up with the appeal is that there are certain things that we have been doing for years, as far back as I can think on, as long as I've been on the commission, which, you know, we were not strict about having a form for this and a filing place for that and a way to answer this and a way to answer that. And I think that's something that we in Vasilia can work on as far as procedures that for most cases are going to seem trivial and annoying and hoop jumping. But for a case where it gets complicated, you want all of those little boxes checked and forms filled in and things clear so that when a problem comes up, you can go, got it. This is the order that we should go through. And I think I've got a couple of good ideas about how to get started on that. So that's my little mini report.
Questions for Pete?
So there was no jurisdiction found for our commission to hear that complaint.
That's right.
Okay.
Correct.
And so, I mean, in my mind, this was a citizens police review.
No. The complaint was actually.
No, I understand, but it originated with them.
It started with a citizens review board complaint, I believe, but by the time it got to us, the only question for our panel was, can a case of discrimination be brought against a city employee acting in their role or as city employee? Can a case of discrimination be brought and have that under our jurisdiction? And we decided, and it was not uncontroversial, let me tell you. There were definitely, I think we were all agreed that we were swaying back and forth on the question of whether that was possible.
Right, and it was not unanimous.
It was not unanimous. It was a 2-to-1 vote in the end. Mm-hmm. And I stupidly made myself the last one to vote, which meant I got to sit there and look like an idiot. But in any event, because the language is just simply not clear on several points. Some of it is just contradictory. Some of it is you could read it and one way or read it another. Personally, I will say one of my conclusions is a lot of the ordinance looks like the Frankenstein problem of people kept doing amendments and not checking that the language matched other places in the ordinance. And you ended up in a case where it was completely unclear what was covered and what wasn't. So I think that has to be cleaned up. In the end, we found that we agreed with the initial determination of Mr. Simon that there was no jurisdiction, but it was not strong one way or the other.
It might be useful if we're going to review and clarify things in the ordinance. Maybe we should have a subgroup look into that and bring their proposals to us for discussion. And it would have to be 2 people because it can't be 3. Correct?
Yep, I'm glad to be part of that. I've already got some notes on where I think there would be important changes in the ordinance for the issues we dealt with, and some
Yeah.
others that, you notice were going to be the same kinds of problems.
Some things, yeah, will be more appropriate than others to change. Would anybody like to work with Pete on this?
Be happy to.
Okay, great. Bring your kitty cat.
I noticed we had an extra commissioner.
Oh, gosh. Love her. Okay. So Pete and Daniel will work and have something for us by July.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Great. Okay. Very, very good. Get that started anyway. That will have to go through some hoops of its own. All right. Anybody have any more comment on that topic? The hearing? Okay. We're moving on to plans that we would like to make for, given the situation that's in all our communities now, really worldwide, in particular the racial tensions in the wake of the death of George Floyd. Would someone like to open the discussion?
Since I brought it up, I'll tell you the reason that it came to mind. And this is one that I don't feel comfortable being the lead, or even really being more than a supportive participant in. But if you take a look at the duties section of the Human Rights Ordinance, 12-22, and go through all of the things we are supposed to do and all of the things we can do, two of the things that jump out are, plan and carry out programs aimed at eliminating discrimination as to all residents, and develop means of anticipation and relief of community tensions that arise from racial, ethnic, and religious and social differences. And so these are sort of basic, that we have the duty to think about these sort of broader issues. But the one that I think we forget about, and we do it every few years, someone remembers that we should really do this, and then it kind of gets put by the wayside, is that it's 1222E says, the services of all city departments and agencies shall be made available by their respective heads to the commission at its request. And information to the hands of any department or agency shall be furnished to the commission upon written request to the mayor. Upon receipt of recommendations in writing from the commission, each department or agency shall submit a reply in writing indicating the disposition of an action taken with regard to such recommendations. This to me means that any department in the city that we want to hear from, what are you doing to address these things? Mm-hmm. Including, even though, it's not obvious, the police department is one of those.
Yes, the mayor, the police department.
And having a discussion, I think one of the things that we tend to forget is, yes, the CPRB is there to do reviews of complaints from citizens, but those reviews are post facto. Something has happened that a citizen feels is unfair or unjust, and then it's brought to the CPRB. We have the ability in our ordinance to do some proactive stuff, mm-hmm. to ask questions of those department heads, and they are required to respond to our questions and make recommendations to the mayor about what should be done in those departments. So I think—
And we have done that in the past.
We have from time to time.
Yes.
But I think, now is a perfect time for us to sort of say, it is that time to start asking those questions. So that's why I brought it up.
Mm-hmm. Comments? Questions? Yes.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I attended the Community Coalition, Champaign County Coalition meeting on Wednesday. And, they used their regular format, and they had the police chiefs of Champaign County, Champaign, Urbana, U of I, and Parkland. But there was not a chance for community involvement to ask questions. They got to make statements. So I would like to work on this. I'm thinking a town hall sort of meeting that is chaired by someone that we could look into, who would make a good source, but asking the police chief, maybe the sheriff, I don't know, he's not a city employee, he's a county employee, but having that opportunity to get some conversations started. Because I felt like that was missing at the last meeting I attended. And I saw many comments in the comment section and questions being asked, and for lack of time, I think, and maybe just planning. Now, I do recall that we did something similar to this. Well, we did a town hall of sorts at the Urbana Civic Center, and we had people coming and telling stories, their own, very powerful. I remember a young 8-year-old sharing, his story. So again, we have done this, we can do this. I think it might address it. I also got a vibe though from that meeting that there's the racial unrest, and then there's the police interaction. I'm not trying to pass judgment by any means, but their reactions to different situations that have occurred in the community. So I realize that some people may have, one focus more than the other. So I think that may be something that we also tease out and make sure we're giving a voice to both sides.
Sounds good. Create an environment, a safe place for people to explore these things.
They've been respectful, and I think that's kind of the key. We have to, if we want people to listen to what we're saying, then we have to say it in a respectful but direct and honest, authentic way.
That sounds great. Pete.
Yeah, so I love that idea. I think we got really good output from when we did that with regard to, it started from traffic stop stuff, but beyond that, I think we do want to keep in mind that paragraph E in the ordinance is actually got a little more power than, having even that conversation can have. Yes, we can have that town hall, and I think that's important, but that will be a conversation. But what we are allowed to do as a commission is actually ask direct questions and get direct answers. And we can be a little more forceful than maybe a whole community might be able to, and the power dynamics are a little different, where I think we do want to have some opportunity to have that discussion very directly with the police department and be able to ask some hard questions, get those answers, make some recommendations. I think we have a tool in our box that we don't often use enough. So I think, and it's not an either or, I think having that kind of town hall worked well, and I think it did start some conversations. Unfortunately, there was a lot of overturn in the police department leadership right at that time. So some of the things I believe Chief Serafin has continued, some of them may not have really gotten too far, but I'd like to use the other tool as well, to actually, as a commission, come up with some real questions about that.
Hey, Pete, if we were to construct some questions for different departments, could we solicit public input after the fact? Hey, what do you think of these questions? What are we missing? What do we just, for a variety of reasons, overlook? Can we?
I think that's a fabulous idea, is have some open forum with us to sort of, okay, we're going to be your representatives of the community, where we have some power to actually ask some questions and make some recommendations. Have a couple of, okay, community, come and talk to us about, we've got some suggested questions. Is there other stuff that we need to push, that we need to ask questions about? I think that would be great.
Again, I hate to keep pointing out things that slow the process down, but I just...
No, I mean, the more the community feels like we've actually done something that might accomplish some change, the better. So no, I far from slowing down, I think that improves things.
And actually, do we have the authority not only to ask questions and to get answers, but, excuse me, but to recommend change so that things get written down so it doesn't matter if there's a turnover in personnel, it's policy that certain things happen or don't happen.
Now, we can only recommend to the mayor and, have the mayor ask for responses from any given department. Well, what are you going to implement? How are you going to do this? What are you not going to implement? And the mayor can choose to, take what they can, from that. So we can't set a policy for the police department that they shall, no
but it'd be
longer
nice
wear
to have it
hats
as a goal.
Yeah,
That it eventuates in something concrete, not
exactly.
just everybody feeling good that afternoon. It's
And I think the outcome of the town halls that Lisa was talking about we had some written stuff, and some of it I think did continue quite well. But I think we can be a little more direct about this and have a tighter conversation. When you have 100 people in the room, it's hard to have sort of a back and forth where you can drill down on a few deep issues. So I think it's an opportunity that we should use.
That's a great idea. So, Lisa, are you there? Lisa? Is she
I'm
there?
here.
Oh, good. Hi. You're not on my screen. Would you like to work on that town hall idea?
Sure.
And would someone like to join her?
I can join. I was sitting here thinking, how can we have questions provided from the public without having numerous people in one room? And so what I was envisioning was maybe a town hall within a town hall. I personally know people that I can borrow a building or something and invite people to come and maybe voice their opinion and state what questions, if they had the opportunity, they want to ask, and then I could jot those down or whomever, and then I can bring those back to the board and we can review, and then possibly when we have our town hall, those are the questions that can be presented also. Something to that effect.
Okay. So Lisa and Stacy. Great. Anybody want to add anything?
I do want to mention, obviously, because of the public concerns about police departments, we focus sort of on that in particular. I think that it's clearly something we can start with.
Yeah.
But this is a broader topic, and I think we should be thinking about all of the departments throughout the city and what kinds of questions can we ask to, promote non-discrimination and to look for where there might be problems and start asking those questions. I think we don't want to bite off too much for the first round, but at least keep in mind that we should keep an open mind about doing more and more of these in the future and not letting it go for a couple of years before we go, oh, we should really get on that again.
Right, because
can I add something? Just for future consideration. Certainly employment is a hot area and a significant area. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is some requirement in the ordinance in terms of the city's affirmative action and periodic reporting to the HRC about our hiring.
Yeah, so there's a separate bullet for specifically that.
So I think that's very, very important. I think it ties in quite well to a broader mission in terms of the unrest and the concerns nationwide right now. So I think that would work very, very well.
Okay. We're definitely going to take some steps and toward everyone feeling comfortable in this city and that they're treated fairly wherever they go and whatever they're doing. So we want fairness and the appearance of fairness. Those are both very important. Anybody else? Do we have any announcements? No, there being none, I guess it is time for us to adjourn. See you all next month.